All right, Boker Tov. So today's Daf is Lamed Hey. We pick up in the towards the bottom of Lamed Dal Lamed Bet. Bishlema Rabbi Yochanan Lamer Kreish Lakish. It is right across from the Bach, about 10 lines from the bottom. Line starts with the word Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, so the Gemara basically has introduced until now, and what we're going to get back to in a few minutes, it's been seeming like when it comes to something that's like chayiv misa or chayiv kares, the possibility is just that a sin of that weight overrides tashlumin. Whereas when it's been coming to the second discussion that we've been having about the punishment of malchus, it seems like you actually need to have that punishment imposed. And therefore, one way of explaining why you pay the fine in the Mishnah, even though a lot of those cases are sins that are deserving of malchus, is a case where the person wasn't warned. And since malchus will not actually be imposed, Edanam lokim mishalem, then actually there will be a payment. So it seems that Misa is more weighty, whereas Malchus, it actually, with just the nature of the sin is enough, or the act is enough, whereas by Malchus, actually, it's only when the punishment is imposed. However, what we've just been introduced to yesterday is a debate of Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, where they seem to not distinguish between the two, where Rabbi Yochanan basically says, what is it? That basically, I'm trying to remember. In both cases, you are. Oh, here, Michael. You just taught this. Rabbi Yochanan says that in both cases you're chayiv, and Reish Lakish says in both cases you're patur, or is it the reversed? Hold on. Sorry. See, this was happens from not giving the daf yesterday. I forget what we're up to. Excuse me one second. Oh no! I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm already jumping ahead. That's my problem. I'm sorry. Okay, so I'm jumping ahead to the next line of the Gemara. The Gemara at this stage just wants to know why Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish gave different answers to the Mishnah. So the Mishnah that speaks about a case of Chayiv Malchus, Rabbi Yochanan said was a case that they didn't actually warn the guy, and therefore Malchus wasn't imposed, and that's why there can be a case of a knas. Whereas Reish Lakish gave a different answer. Reish Lakish said that the Mishnah was Rabbi Meir, and Rabbi Meir allows for the fact of there both being lashes and payment. Okay, so I actually was jumping ahead to the next line of the Gemara. So at this stage, the Gemara just wants to know why they gave different answers to explain the Mishnah. So let's take a look. So Bi Shlema Rabbi Yochanan Lama Reish Lakish. We understand why Rabbi Yochanan did not say like Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish said the Mishnah was Rabbi Meir, and therefore it was both lashes and a payment. To Kamukim like Rabbanan, he'd rather the Mishnah go like the rabbis. Why make it go like the position of Rabbi Meir, so you get lashes and payment if that's a das yachid? That's a minority opinion. Normally we assume you don't get both lashes and payment. El Reish Lakish, so my time along with Rabbi Yochanan. Why did Reish Lakish not say like Rabbi Yochanan? Why did Reish Lakish not say a simple scenario where there wasn't warning? And since there wasn't warning, there's not going to be lashes imposed. And since there won't be lashes imposed, there will be able to be a fine. That seemed like an extremely straightforward way of explaining the Mishnah, that there was no hatra'ah. So the Gemara says, Amar Lecha, because Reish Lakish would say to you, Kivan dilu atu bei patur, since were you to have given him warning and were you to have imposed lashes, he would be exempt from paying a fine. Kilu atrabe nami patur. Then even without warning, he's also exempt. And here Reish Lakish says that there is no difference, at least in this stage. The Gemara is going to reverse itself very soon. But at this stage, Reish Lakish is saying there is no difference between lashes and the death penalty. Even if the punishment is not imposed, just because it is an act that is deserving of that, that is enough to override a monetary payment. Okay, the Azdu l'tamayu, and they go according to the reasonings. The Kiyaz Rav Dimi, when Rav Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael, Amar, he said, something weird just happened here with my broadcast. It's not broadcasting right now. Hold on one second. This is very weird. All right, I don't know what's going on here. All right. Kiyasa Rav Dimi, when Rav Dimi came, Amarach, he said, Chayvim Mises Shogigim, V'chayvim Malkios Shogigim. Oh, there we go. V'davar Acher. So you have something that is deserving of death. that you did by that person did b'shogeg, like he was Mechal Shabbos, or deserving of lashes that he did b'shogeg. So in both of these cases, not only was there's no hatra'ah. No hatra'ah is one thing. No hatra'ah is that the nature of the act, actually we could have given this guy's lashes had, we satisfied the technicalities. Here's a case that the guy was shogeg. So in this circumstance, he's not, it's a sin that in other circumstances is worthy of being punished by lashes or death, but not in these circumstances. There wasn't sufficient intent. And nevertheless, it's the nature of the sin that it's deserving of lashes or of the death penalty. So v'davar acher, and alongside those weighty sins comes a monetary payment. Rabbi Yochanan amar chayav, Reish Lakish amar pater. Rabbi Yochanan says you're chayav, and Reish Lakish says you're exempt. So here is a big shocker from our assumptions, because if you've been sort of getting the sense of the flow for the last few days, when we dealt with something that's chayav misa, we assumed, there was no discussion of giving hatra'ah. The hatra'ah discussion didn't begin until we got to Malkus. By chayav misa was, that's such a weighty sin, it overrides payment. When it got to Malkus, we said, no, only if you gave the guy warning, only if you're actually going to impose Malkus. Okay, and that's what we were assuming, that Malkus had to be imposed to override payment. And therefore, Rabbi Yochanan was able to say that if you didn't actually give the warning, there would be payment. And that was the explanation of our Mishnah. But now the Gemara is telling us that the reason Reish Lakish refused that explanation is Reish Lakish gives Malkus the same weight as Mita. And Reish Lakish says that even the sin itself, even without warning, even if it was b'shogeg, is enough to override a payment of money. And the only way, therefore, to explain our Mishnah that there's a payment of money is the position of Rabbi Meir that rejects the whole thing. But if you basically assume this principle that Ein Adam Loka and Mishalem, it applies even if there's no warning, even b'shogeg. Okay, and now we're going to look at that. The Gemara is going to back off on that because that's a little extreme, but let's take a look. Okay, Rabbi Yochanan Merchai. So let's take a look. Rabbi Yochanan Merchayev the Halo Asrubei. Rabbi Yochanan says you're chayev. They didn't give him warning, and the principle by Malkus is Malkus has to actually be imposed. Reish Lakish amar pater, and Reish Lakish says you're exempt. Kivin dilu atubei pater, since it's such a weighty act that were they to have warned him and were to have done it b'mezid, then and were Malkus to be imposed, there would not be a payment. Then even without the warning, he's also exempt. That's the type of weighty act it is, and it doesn't really therefore matter whether it was intentional or unintentional, with warning or without warning. Okay, so they actually argue even by Mal, or they argue by Malkus. So Reish Lakish, who said you're always going to be pater, challenged Rabbi Yochanan. Again, that famous pasuk that we've been focusing on a lot. One of the reasons I should tell you that we've been focusing on it is it's actually going to be the pasuk quoted in the Mishnah that bases this idea that a chayav misa overrides a monetary payment. Okay, so Reish Lakish says to Rabbi Yochanan, here it says if there is no ason, right, no death, then you pay the fine. Okay, this is again the case of these two men fighting and hitting a woman, causing a miscarriage. Now, my love ason mamish, doesn't it mean that as soon as there's any death, even if it's not deserving of the death penalty, even, for example, if there was no warning, even if it was accidental or tried to kill one person, killed another or whatever, in such a case, doesn't it mean that even if it's not going to be, you're not going to execute the person, once there was a death, then there's not going to be a monetary payment. So you see, says Reish Lakish Rabbi Yochanan, you don't actually need that the punishment be imposed. You just need that to be the act that was committed. And once somebody is killed, even if it's not going to be a capital crime because it was an accident or whatever, nevertheless it overrides the monetary payment. Now we need to take a pause here because wonderful, your answer should be. Thank you very much. That's a case of death penalty. That's a case of something that's chayav misa. Chayav misa, who said that Rabbi Yochanan disagreed by chayav misa? The whole discussion we were having was about Malkus, that maybe by Malkus, there Reish Lakish was saying, you don't even need to warn the guy by Malkus. You don't even need to impose the punishment. Rabbi Yochanan said you did. The fact that the Gemara here is having Reish Lakish challenge Rabbi Yochanan in the case of a death penalty makes it sound like, at this stage, the Gemara is assuming that their debate is both by Malkus and by Misa. That by Rabbi Yochanan does not require the punishment imposed in either case. Shogeg by Misa, Shogeg by Malkus, either way it overrides. And Rabbi Yochanan, the Gemara is assuming now, this is where it's going to back off, that Rabbi Yochanan requires the punishment imposed, not only by Malchus, but even by Misa. That even something deserving of death is only going to override payment when the person did it b'mezid and with warning, and the punishment is actually going to be imposed. And as I've been telling you, that's not what we've been assuming until now. Until now, we've been assuming that something that's a capital crime, even without the punishment being imposed, it overrides, okay? So once again, Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish debate whether something deserving of Malchus needs the punishment to be imposed or not. At this stage, the Gemara is assuming that it's the same debate by something deserving of Misa. That if Rabbi Yochanan needs the punishment to be imposed by Malchus, he needs it to be imposed by Misa. So Rabbi Lakish says, well, what do you do with this verse? This verse sounds like if somebody got killed, even if they're not going to execute the person, it still overrides. So the Gemara says, Lo din ason. No, it doesn't just mean somebody is killed. It means somebody is killed and therefore deserving of the punishment, and therefore actually it was done with warning, and the person is deserving of execution. Okay, it's not just somebody is killed. Now, Rabbi Yochanan asked Reish Ikadami. Some say that it started the reverse. Rabbi Yochanan challenged Reish Lakish. Lo yeh ason anosh yanesh. My lav din ason. Doesn't that mean that only when the execution, the punishment for murder is imposed, it overrides the payment? Lo ason mamish. No, once there's a death, that overrides the payment even without a punishment. Again, assuming that they debate even the case of something deserving of death. Amar Rava. So now Rava says, wait. You took that to too much of an extreme. Would anybody, either Rabbi Yochanan or Reish Lakish, think that if it's something of the death penalty that you would pay if the punishment isn't going to be imposed, meaning that even in the case of shogeg, you would pay? That's not possible. Death penalty is so weighty that everybody agrees it overrides, even if it's the case of shogeg. Vatana de Chizkiah. We taught from the house of Chizkiah. Makeh adam umakeh behema. Right? The pasuk says, Makeh behema yishamenu, makeh adam yumat. If somebody smites a behema, he has to pay, and if he smites a person, he'll be put to death. So Chizkiah says it's equating the two. How's it equating the two? Ma makeh behema lo chilakta bo bein shogeg bein mezi bein mitkaven l'shein mitkaven bein derech yibidol derech aliyah lepotro mamon el chayvo mamon. So when it comes to smiting an animal, okay, you're always going to be chayiv. There's a principle in Baba Kama called adam muad la'olam. A person is always liable for damage to property that he does personally with his body. Okay. Now there are some cases that seem to be an exception to that. We'll worry about it when we get to Baba Kama. But here, Rabbi Chizkiah is saying the following. It says, "Makeh behema yishamena." You always pay for something. You break it, you pay for it. Okay, in all circumstances. I don't care how much at fault you were, how much not at fault you were. If you break something, you pay for it. Okay, so ma makeh behema lo chilakta. You're not going to distinguish bein shogeg bein mezi, whether accidental or intentional. Bein mitkaven l'shein mitkaven. Are you intending or not intending? Bein derech yibidol derech aliyah. You're going up or you're going down. Did you fall on it, climbing a ladder, or coming down off of a ladder? Lepotro mamon. You'll never in any of those cases say somebody's exempt from money. El l'chayvo mamon. You'll always say that they're liable. Okay, af makeh adam. So the reverse, by when you kill a person. Lo chiltachlok, you should never distinguish bein b'shogeg bein mezi, whether he was killed, through negligence or intent or willfully. Bein mitkaven l'shein mitkaven, intending or not intending. I mean, derech yibidol derech aliyah, going up and going down. Because the reason here you understand why it says going up and going down, because when it comes to shogeg, when it comes to killing somebody and going into galus, it matters that it's only when somebody is going down and falls like off of going down off of a ladder or swinging down a hatchet, as opposed to going up. Okay. So, but here it's not going to matter whether you're chayiv misa or not chayiv misa, whether you're chayiv galus or not chayiv galus. If somebody died as a result of your actions, we're never going to say in any case that you pay any monetary payment. You'll always be exempt. Okay, so the same way you'll always have to pay for anything you damage, and similarly, if somebody gets killed, you'll never have to pay for any damage that occurred in those contexts.
We do kill the fetus, so we do pay damage.
Yeah, but that's not considered somebody. That's not considered yet legally alive.
Kill the woman intentionally, right?
It doesn't matter. The fetus isn't considered a life. Okay. So So that's the position of Chizkiah, and that's why we've been assuming for the last week that in all the earlier cases, when it was like a chayiv kares, or according to Reb Nechunya ben Akana, or whether it's a chayiv misa, we never mentioned malchus. We never mentioned hatra'ah. If you're paying attention, hatra'ah was only mentioned when we started talking about malchus. Because when it's something so weighty that's deserving of misa or of kares, according to Reb Nechunya ben Akana, that overrides monetary payment, even if there's no warning, even if it's b'shogeg, even if the punishment won't be imposed. So when Reb Yochanan said you needed warning, he was never saying it by misa. He was only saying it by malchus. So that to the degree that there's a debate of Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, it's about the malchus case. By the misa case, everybody agrees, and the Gemara concedes that point. So the Gemara says now, Ella, you're right. Hiyasa Ravi, when Ravi came from Eretz Yisrael, Amar, he said the following. We clarified it. Chayve misas shogegim, when it's something deserving of execution and it's done b'shogeg, so not only no warning but not even intentional. Nevertheless, that's how weighty the act was. Nobody disagrees that you're meaning everybody agrees that you're exempt. Ki pligi, what's the debate? When it comes to lashes, v'davar acher, and a monetary payment. Rabbi Yochanan says you're chayiv, okay, unless because you did it b'shogeg. When it comes to lashes, it only overrides payment if there was warning and if the punishment was going to be imposed. And that's why Rabbi Yochanan was able to say that our Mishnah of payment is cases where there was no warning, no lashes imposed, then you're going to pay. So when it comes to lashes, says Rabbi Yochanan, there only when you're mazed and only when there's hatra'ah. That's what Rabbi Yochanan says. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Chayev, Chayve Misas Ishkos, Chayve Malkias Lo Iskish. When do we say that killing somebody is equated to killing this animal, in the sense that you're always going to be exempt when you kill somebody? That's when it's talking about things that are deserving of the death penalty. That's when there's no distinction. An act deserving the death penalty, you will always be exempt from monetary payments. But things deserving of lashes, that was not in this verse linked to killing the animal. And therefore, things deserving of lashes, you're not always going to be exempt. You're only going to be exempt if you actually are going to get the lashes. Actually, we did it intentionally and were warned. And Reish Lakish says you're exempt. The Torah made lashes just like the death penalty, and the same way by the death penalty you're always going to be exempt, even if it was b'shogeg. Then by lashes you'll also always be exempt by monetary payment, even if it was b'shogeg. Okay, so now we have clarified that the first half, just to structure in your mind, to remember what we've been doing the last week, right? The first half dealt with cases about if you did something that's deserving of kares, is that as bad as something that's deserving of the death penalty? Does that override the monetary payment? There, the assumption was that no punishment is being imposed. Certainly by kares, no punishment is being imposed by the court. And similarly, by the death penalty, we weren't talking about a punishment being imposed, but we said the same way the death penalty overrides payment, does chayiv kares override payment? That was a position of Reb Nechunya ben Akana. Then we switched to the issue of the lashes, because all the cases in the Mishnah are also deserving of lashes. How come there you're going to pay? What about the fact that lashes are being imposed? So we had one answer that says, Ula, that says you'll always pay money, not get lashes, if you have to choose between the two. Then we had Rabbi Yochanan that said lashes aren't being imposed. But when it comes to lashes, it's only going to override when it's actually imposed, when there's actually warning. And then we had Reish Lakish that said, oh no, this is Rabbi Meir who says you can get both. So now we're explaining the reason Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish gave their different answers is because although by Misa, that sin is enough to override payment regardless of whether it was intentional or unintentional, when it comes to lashes, there's a debate. Rabbi Yochanan says only when there's warning and when lashes are imposed, and Reish Lakish says even lashes will always override money. Even if it was unintentional, the nature of that act is so weighty that it will always override money. Okay, and now the Gemara wants to understand where Reish Lakish links lashes to the death penalty. That the same way death penalty always overrides, lashes always overrides. So the Gemara says, Heichen Ripsa Torah, where did the Torah connect lashes to the death penalty? Amar Abaye, Asa Rasha. There's two verses. It says Hayayin bin Hakot Harasha, right, which is a verse about giving somebody lashes, the classic verse about giving somebody lashes, and it says Asherhu Rasha Lamut. So two people, so both the person deserving of death penalty and the person deserving of lashes are labeled a Rasha. That's a pretty good link. Rava Amar Asya Maka. No. It connects the smiting and the smiting. The same way it says Makeh behema yishamena, And the makeh behema yishamena was the idea of saying we're never going to make any distinctions. You always pay. So therefore, when it says makeh adam yumat, you always don't pay. So there's another verse that speaks about makeh by lashes, and therefore that makeh by lashes is linked to the makeh by behema. And the same way makeh behema you always pay, the makeh of lashes you always don't pay. So where does it say makeh by lashes? So the Gemara says, Chai makeh. Where does it speak about smiting by lashes to say it's linked to the case of the behema and therefore you're always exempt? Ilema umakeh behema yishamena makeh adam yumat, the pasuk we started with, hi biktalaksi, that's talking about killing a person and deserving of the death penalty. Elahai makeh, this following case. Makeh nefesh behema yishamena, nefesh tachas nefesh. If you smite an animal, you pay for it, soul for soul, which there obviously means money. And then it juxtaposes to that. The ish ki tein mum ba'amito, if a person puts a wound in his friend, kasher asakeni yasalo. Like what's done to the other person will be done to him. Okay, so first of all, that doesn't say the word makeh. It's just juxtaposed, right? So the Gemara says, "V'hai lav makehi." That doesn't say the word makeh. Okay, anan haka kamrinan. Fine. We don't mean the word makeh. We mean the scenario: smiting a behema and smiting a person. So it juxtaposes those two. The problem, of course, is that the case of smiting a person is not a case of deserving of lashes. Right, the case of smiting a person is a case of making payments. Right, you understand what we're trying to do? According to Reish Lakish, we're trying to say that a verse about deserving of lashes is linked to the case of killing an animal. And the same way killing an animal, you always pay. Getting lashes, you always don't pay. But this verse that's juxtaposed is not about getting lashes. It's about inflicting injury on a person.
It's all in the same context, though. It started by saying, and it's all, but it's just like a pasuk or two later.
It doesn't matter. That's not my question. My question is that it's not a case of lashes. So what? You juxtapose it to a case of inflicting injury on a person. That's a case of payment, not a case of lashes. We're looking to link a case of lashes. So the Gemara says, that's the Gemara's question. 1 minute. That verse, okay, it's smiting a person, but it's not an act deserving of lashes by the court. It's an act deserving of payment. It's about personal injury. And somebody that injures somebody has to pay money. So the Gemara says, no, you're right. But we don't need that verse to tell me a case of payment for injury. That we learn from other verses. The purpose of that verse is not talking about a case where there's actually going to be enough damage to pay. So what are we talking about? We're talking about personal injury under a pruta's worth. Hard to imagine what type of personal injury that is. Anyway, so
it's such a more weighty punishment.
Right. Anyway, I know. So
you pay them a pruta.
I understand. I understand. So it's a special case of injury where there's no monetary payment and there's lashes. And it's being linked to smiting a behema. So from there we see, says Reish Lakish, the same way smiting behema you always pay. When a case that's deserving lashes, you always don't pay. Okay, again, I think the Rabbi's answer of Russia was easier. Anyway, the Gemara says, the Gemara says, I don't get it though, because that case, if it's a case of injuring somebody under a pruta, where's the scenario that you would be high of money? It's not like the lashes overrides the money. There's like no money there to begin with, okay? So the Gemara says, and when there is money, you actually do pay the money in a case of personal injury. So the Gemara says, no. No, we'd be talking about a scenario, while you were smiting this person, personal injury under a pruta, and therefore deserving of lashes, Karashirai delay. You ruined his beautiful clothes. You caused him to bleed over his clothes. Okay, so you punched him in the nose. That might be not a bad example. Punched him in the nose. How much is that worth? It was a little bit of a nosebleed. It lasted 10 seconds, but it dripped over his gorgeous, Hermes tie, silk tie. Okay, so therefore you're potter. You get lashes for punching him in the nose because it wasn't a pruta's worth of damage to this person, but you're potter from the damage that it was to his tie, and that's even if you didn't get warning, and even if it was b'shogeg, and even if we're not going to impose the lashes, but because it was deserving of the lashes, that overrides the punishment. Okay, so that was a little complicated, but nevertheless, the point is that we have, again, to remind you of the different positions out there, chayiv misa, everybody says even b'shogeg overrides money. Chayiv kares, that's Nechunya ben Akana, who says that. The rabbis disagree. Chayiv malkus, okay, we've got three opinions. We've got Ula that says you always pay. We've got the standard assumption that you're exempt. And we have Rav Meir that says that you pay both. within the standard assumption that you're exempt when it's malchus and money, Rabbi Yochanan says only if malchus is imposed, if there's hatra'ah, and Reish Lakish says even if malchus is b'shogeg. Okay, so you got all that information. You're going to be tested on it tomorrow. So the Gemara says like this. So we're actually coming close to the end of the sugya. Okay, so Amalei Rabbi Chia l'Rava. So Rabbi Chia said to Rava, Ulatana de Chizkiah, according to the Tana of the house of Chizkiah, that links, killing a person to smiting an animal. That's the same way smiting an animal you always pay. If you kill a person, you always don't pay, even if it was b'shogeg and so on. So, how do you know that we're talking about it was during the weekday? And there's no, and therefore we're saying, when you smite an animal, you're always going to pay. You're always only going to pay by an animal if you smite it on the weekday. But if you killed it on Shabbos, you're not going to pay because then it's a chayav misa act that you did. Okay, Dilma b'Shabbos ksiv. That even by the case of an animal, you could say sometimes you don't pay. Right? That's the irony of this case, right? Because Chizkiah says the same way by an animal you always do pay, by killing a person you always don't pay. Of course, except, right? There's an exception to that. It's not you always do pay by an animal. You don't pay by an animal if you did it while you're killing a person. So, right? So, okay, so that's what it says. What do you mean killing an animal you always pay? There are cases you don't pay. If you killed an animal on Shabbos, for example, right? That's the case where the two principles, you always do pay for an animal, you always don't pay for a person. But when those two things happen at the same time, then one of those principles is overridden. So the Gemara says, Lo salkadaitich. No, that doesn't make sense. Tichsiv, umake behema yishamena makayu adam yumas. Heichidami. So we have to be talking about the same scenario, right? If we're talking about that you killed the animal on Shabbos, presumably we're talking about that you killed the person on Shabbos. So let's take a look. Hey, Chidami, what's the case? Idolo asrube, if you didn't give the guy warning, so make adam amayumas, right? So why would you execute somebody if you didn't give the person warning, right? In the second part of the verse, right? You can only execute the person if he was warned when he killed somebody else. So elapshita the asrube, it must be in the second part of the verse where the guy is going to be put to death. You warned him, don't kill this guy. Okay, so elapshita the asrube. The Iba Shabbos, so now this is the verse of Make Behema and Make Adam is talking about you warned the guy. Okay, you warned the guy about presumably anything wrong he's about to do. So in the second part of the verse, don't murder, he murdered, you're going to execute him. So the first part of the verse, when it's the animal, you said what? Don't damage somebody else's property. But if it's also Shabbos, presumably you also said, don't be Mechalel Shabbos. Okay? Shabbos, so if it's Shabbos, how could the first part of the verse say that you have to pay for the animal? You wouldn't pay for the animal if you were Mechalel Shabbos with warning. Nobody would ever say you pay for the animal. Elulav b'chol, it must be during the weekday. Okay, fine. So basically, since the first part of the verse says you pay for an animal, we're not talking about Shabbos, because if it was Shabbos, you wouldn't pay. All right? So therefore, we're talking about when you killed an animal without it being an act, that's chayiv misa, you're always going to pay. So therefore, when you kill a person and when you do an act that's chayiv misa, you're always not going to pay. All right. Now we are coming to wrapping the whole thing up. Okay, we've been through, and I've already repeated for you all the different positions. Chayav misa always overrides, even if it's shogeg. That's Tana de Chizkiah. Kares is a debate whether that overrides. That's what do you call it? That's Reb Nechunya ben Akaneh. Chayav Malkios. You have Ula that says you pay rather than get Malkus, maybe minimally by the Knas, maybe all the time. You have Rav Meir that says you get both. And then you have the standard position that says you get Malkus. And within the standard position you get Malkus. It's the debate of Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish. Is it only when the Malkus is imposed, which is what Rabbi Yochanan says, or even when the Malkus is not imposed? So now the Gemara says like this. Amalei Rav Papa Rabbi. So Rav Papa said to Abaye, L'Rabba the Amar, Chidish v'shechit Torah b'knas, the Avagav the Nikto Mishaleh. Rabbi said that according to Rabbi Meir, who says you get Malkus and pay, he would also say that even when you get Misa, you pay, as long as it's a Knas. That was yesterday's daf, right? Michael, you covered that, right? So Rabbi the Rabbi says that Rabbi Meir would say, not only do you pay when you get Malkus, you even pay, according to Rabbi Meir, when it's a death penalty, if it's a case of a Knas. If that's true, Masnisin Kaman Mukimwa, who is our Mishnah going to be like? Okay, remember the case of our Mishnah, right? Our Mishnah had, I don't know, should I draw it here? Whatever. Our Mishnah had, I don't want to, right? Here's our Mishnah. Our Mishnah had that you basically pay the Knas of the 50 shekel, right? In which cases? It had it that you had a case of mamzer, mamzeret, which was malchus. It had a case of achoto, which was karet. Okay, and then it said, but no knas if it's a case of bito, which is a Mishnah coming up. Okay, that's what basically we say. Okay, so this is the case of chayve misos. Chayve misos, even shogegim, we've just been saying, you're exempt. Okay, that's the Mishnah coming up. This case, you're chayv, right? The case of mamzeres and the case of achoso. Now, why? So by the case of achoso kares, right, we said that's not Reb Nechunya ben Akana. Right? Remember, Nechunya ben Akana said even in a case of kares, you're exempt. Okay, so that was the kares. We've been focusing on. We haven't been talking about mamzer. We've been talking about achoso if you give warning, and therefore kares becomes malchus. But it doesn't matter. We've been focusing on the malchus aspect of it. Okay, so we've been saying, I don't get it. Doesn't malchus override the knas? Why not the malchus? And we've had here three basic answers. We've had ula that says you basically get mamon, low malchus. Okay, that's ula's position. You pay money. We've had the Rebbe Meir position that says mamon umalchus. Okay, you get both. And then we've had the Rebbe Yochanan position that said no hatra'ah, so malchus not imposed. And if malchus is not imposed, you're going to pay the fine. Okay, those are the three answers we had. Now, the Gemara has a problem though. The answer that it is Rebbe Meir, and that allows you to pay the malchus even though you both do the malchus and the knas. But if Rebbe Meir says even by chayiv misa, if it's a knas, you also pay the knas. How come here, by the case of daughter, you don't pay? Right, by saying Rebbe Meir, you can get mammon and malchus, and that explains these cases that you pay even though it's deserving of malchus. But if Rebbe Meir says even when it's the death penalty and a knas, you're going to pay, then how come here you don't pay the knas by the case of bito? So that's the Gemara's question. So Amalei Rav Papa Abaye, Rabbi the Amar, according to Rabbi, says chidushu shechit Torah b'knas, that the Torah made a chidush by the case of knas. The afagav the mikto mishalei, even though you're going to get put to death, you're still going to pay. Masnisin kaman mukimla. Who does the Mishnah going to go like? Ik Rebbe Meir. If it's like Rebbe Meir, kasha bito. Then you don't understand why the daughter, in the case of the daughter, doesn't pay the knas, which is the next Mishnah. Okay, because Rebbe Meir says even in the case of chayav misa, you're going to pay a knas according to this. If it's Reb Nechunya ben Akana that says that it's obviously not Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana, because Reb Nechunya ben Akana says that kares you get off the hook. Kasha choso. So the case of a choso doesn't work, right? Because Nechunya ben Akana says that by the case of kares it overrides. Reb Yitzchak. Now, who is Reb Yitzchak? Reb Yitzchak, remember that was yesterday, right, Michael? Reb Yitzchak was the one that says that you don't get lashes in a case of kares. Okay, fine. So to say you don't get lashes in a case of kares brackets the problem of achoso. Kares doesn't override, and there are no lashes. We solved the achoso. But you're still going to have to do with the lashes because of mamzeres. Why don't the lashes override? Kasha mamzeres. Now, so basically what we've basically said is, okay, it can't be Rebbe Meir because Rebbe Meir, Mammon and Malchus would say it even by Bito. Okay, obviously it can't be Rebbe Nechunya ben Akana. So we're back to saying, who are the possible positions we are now left with? So the obvious possible positions are either Ula, which the Gemara is ignoring for whatever reason, or Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan is the position that said there is no hatra'ah. Since there's no hatra'ah, no malchus, and therefore you're going to pay knas here, because the kares doesn't override. We reject Nechunya ben Akana. But by the case of Misa does override. Okay, Rabbi Yochanan is basically the easiest answer for everything. It works if you hold like Rabbi Yochanan. Like Rabbi Yochanan. He would explain it like Rabbi Yochanan. So why in the case of the Mishnah by Malchus do you pay? Because there was no warning. Why in the case of Misa do you not pay? Because Misa is more weighty, and Misa even with no warning you don't pay. But when in the case of Malchus with no warning you do pay. Rabbi Yochanan is the simplest explanation. But if you have like Reish Lakish says even if there's no warning in both cases, you get out of payment. So how would he explain it? He must hold like Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, so basically that was a long way of saying that Rabbi Yochanan is the easiest explanation. Here you pay because there was no warning, no malchus, no warning, and kares doesn't override. And here you don't pay because it's misa, and misa does override all the time. Okay, that's the easiest. In a way, the other way to ask the question is what would Reish Lakish say? Right, Reish Lakish would say, right, why here do you pay whatever happened to the fact that malchus always overrides? So that's why Reish Lakish says it's going like Rebbe Meir. But then you would have to say for that, but if he's going like Rebbe Meir must say that in case of the death penalty, you don't pay. Okay, so basically it's saying if you hold like Reish Lakish, that the only way to explain the beginning part of the mission is Rebbe Meir, that says you pay 2 times, Rebbe Meir would have to make an exception when it's a case of a death penalty. The reverse is if Rebbe Meir doesn't make an exception in the case of the death penalty, then you have to go like Rebbe Yochanan that says the difference is that here you weren't warned, and when you weren't warned for Malchus, you pay, whereas when you weren't warned for Misa, you don't pay. Have I completely confused everyone?
Why can't they just have said it that way? I mean, less equal armies.
What?
Why couldn't they just said it that other way?
It could, but we started within the Rabbah. Within Rabbah. If Rebbe Meir, right, bottom line here, I don't know if the board was helping or not here. Let me try one more time. Okay, bottom line is that how do you distinguish between the first part of the Mishnah where Malchus doesn't override and the end where Misa does? So the easiest explanation is, what position would distinguish between Malchus and Misa? That's the question. The easiest explanation is Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says Malchus, it's a case where you weren't warned. Misa is weighty enough to override. Malchus does not override. Okay, so that's why you weren't warned. Malchus, you're going to pay. Misa, you won't pay. The other explanation is Rebbe Meir, assuming Rebbe Meir distinguishes between Malchus and Misa. The Rebbe Meir says Malchus and Misa, you'll do both. You will impose both penalties, and that's the beginning of the Mishnah. Misa and Mammon, even Misa and Knas, you don't impose both, and that's the end of the Mishnah. Okay, so if Rebbe Meir doesn't distinguish between the top and the bottom, then you have to adopt Rabbi Yochanan, who does distinguish between the top and the bottom. And if you're Reish Lakish and you reject Rabbi Yochanan and say that Misa and Malchus doesn't matter if you're warned or not, then you have to say that Rabbi Meir is the one who distinguishes between the top and the bottom. Okay, so that's what the Gemara is saying here. All right, this is all going to be on the final. So now the Gemara says like this. Amalei Rav Masna Rabbi. Rav Masna said to Rabbi, Reish Lakish tamar befeish ribsa Torah chayvei malchus k'chayvei misos. So according to Reish Lakish, that said that the Torah explicitly treated malchus like the death penalty, and said that if you're always exempt by misa, you're always going to be exempt by malchus. So man tanit the polygaled Reb Nechunya ben Akana. Who would disagree with Reb Nechunya ben Akana? Because Reb Nechunya ben Akana says when you do something deserving of kares, you don't pay, right? But anything deserving of kares is a transgression of a lav, right? Everybody with me? Anything deserving of kares is a transgression of a lav. So according to Rabbi Yochanan, isn't Rabbi Yochanan saying essentially more than Reb Nechunya ben Akana? Reb Nechunya ben Akana says anything deserving of kares overrides money. Rabbi Yochanan says any transgression of a lav overrides money. So according to Rabbi Yochanan, who would this? I'm not Rabbi Yochanan. Reish Lakish, excuse me. Reish Lakish says any transgression of a lav, even if there's no malchus, overrides money, right? So who would disagree with Reb Nechunya ben Akana? Every case of kares is a case of something deserving of malchus. So according to Reish Lakish, everybody should agree with it. Okay, but even Reb Nechunya ben Akana only said when it was a lav. He didn't say when it was a passive assay. So the Gemara says, so man tanat the polygaled Reb Nechunya ben Akana. Who would disagree? According to Reish Lakish, every case of deserving of kares is theoretically deserving of malchus. So the Gemara says, Rebbe Meir, either it's Rebbe Meir, because Rebbe Meir is more strict. Rebbe Meir says you always do both. Okay, so it's a principled rejection of the whole idea of override. But Rebbe Yitzchak, or it would be Rebbe Yitzchak that said kares does not get malchus. Okay, so maybe the Gemara says, ironically, right, if it's a weightier sin and it's kares, since that takes it out of the based-in role, the based-in function of malchus, for Reish Lakish, it's possible that a simple lav overrides monetary payment, because were it done in the right circumstance, we would give you malchus. But a weightier lav deserving of kares does not override, because there's no circumstance in which we would impose malchus. Okay, so it's possible that Reish Lakish, ironically, would have more of an override by a chayiv malchus than by a chayiv kares if he held like Rebbe Yitzchak. All right, now we can take a breath. That is, at least for the time being, Right. That is, at least for the time being, the end of a very large sugya of Kimle B'Drabamine that basically was with us. And, the Gemara nicely sort of summarized it here at the end by saying, how do all the positions line up? Okay. But the Gemara basically, I want you to appreciate how long we've been doing the sugya. Since the beginning of the parak, this is basically about, what is this? Like about 7 pages, a week's worth of dapim, 7 dapim, all on one extended sugya of King B'Drabamine. All right, and basically the other thing to appreciate, it was pretty much an entire sugya written by the Stam, meaning it basically wove together different opinions that were said in other contexts, right? And it basically created an entire sugya out of it, as opposed to a sugya that basically is anchored in real debates of like Tanai Amoraim around issues in the Mishnah. Okay, so now the Gemara gets back to the key issue of the Mishnah, but it's not going to stray too far. Tanu Rabbanan. Right, remember the main point of the Mishnah, when you pay knas, when a guy rapes a woman who might be also related to him and a different woman he can't marry. Okay, so let's take a look. Arayas v'shnias l'arayas ein lahem knas. So women that are forbidden sexual relations or secondary ones, which normally means rabbinic, there's no knas. V'lo pitoy, velo pitoi, and also in the case of seduction, there's not going to be the 50 shekel either. In both cases, it's 50 shekel. Tosfos discusses why it's being labeled as something different. Anyway, hamima'enes, a young girl, right? Remember, the mima'enes is a young girl, katana, married off by her mother and brothers, and she would have the right to refuse the marriage, even though she's been living with the guy, until she becomes a nara. So Mima'enes ain't la knas. She doesn't have a knas, but since she's been living with the guy, although it's not halachically kiddushin, if it's halachically was kiddushin, then it would be a case of adultery, not a case of, at least for the guy who did it, not a case of onus and mefata, which is the case of a woman who's not married. So it still ironically can be onus and mefata because technically she's not married to the guy she's been living with. Okay, but it's not going to pay a knas because since she's been living with this guy, she's not a basula, or she's assumed to not be a basula. Velo pitoy, okay, and in the case of the payments for seduction. Islandist, by the way, I should say, and I want to remind everybody that even when we say there's no knas in cases of rape, because the girl doesn't fit into this narrow category of na'ara, who is na'ara basula, right? There still is all the payments for normal acts of rape, which is treated as a case of like physical assault, okay, which is pain and suffering and injury and shame and all those things, okay. But there's just not the special knas of the 50, okay.
But also like in those cases where you're allowed to be married to her, right? Meaning like it's not like an arayot. You still have to be with her, right?
Oh yeah, right, exactly.
Knas,
Right. In the case of rape, there would still also be that mitzvah to be married, right? So velo pita. Vayotzes mishum shemra. I'm sorry, I skipped a line. Islandist ain't lo knas velo pita. An islandist who's a woman that never physically develops, and therefore she's not just infertile, but her body never really physically matures in certain ways. So she basically never goes through the stage of nara. Nara is the stage of puberty. So she never is a nara. She goes from being a katana and at the age of 20, she's deemed to be a gedola, a bogeret. So since she's never a nara, the knas is only for a nara. So an islandist does not have a knas. Velo pito. Yotzes mishum shemra, a woman who's being divorced because of the shemra, which basically means, right, that it's she's found to have been an adulterer, to have committed adultery. So ein la lo knas velo pito. It doesn't have knas and pito, which is of course bizarre. Of course, she doesn't have knas and pito. First of all, she's married. Second of all, right, she's not. Whatever. So the Gemara is going to ask about that. That last case is bizarre. So the Gemara says like this. First, we'll take this apart piece bit by bit. My arayas to my shnius arayas. What's the case about arayas and secondary ones? Ilema arayas mamish. If arayas literally means anybody who's an arayas, any isser kares or isser misa, and shnios is meet, and maybe even an isser lav, and shnios is mitivei sofrim, and shnios is rabbinic, which is what we normally use those phrases to mean. Kiven the midoraisa chazile, since biblically this woman, he could marry this woman, even if rabbinically he can't. Amai ein la knas. Why does she not get the knas? Which is a funny question, because you might have said once the rabbis treated her as an arayos, so they wanted to be consistent. So in all areas of halacha, they treated her as a woman that could not be married, and therefore were consistent and said she didn't get a knas. But maybe here the Gemara says that would not be fair to her. Okay, and we're not going to deprive her of the knas just because there's rabbinically he can't marry her. That should not be something that would get in the way. Biblically, she's entitled to the knas. So Ella Arayas Chayve Misas Basin. Fine, we're talking about different severities. Arayas means deserving of the death penalty. Shnios is Chayve Krisis, is Chayev Kares. Okay, so both of these do not, as opposed to our Mishnah. Our Mishnah said that even a Chayev Kares gets a Knas. Yeah, biblical. Shnios just means slightly lower, right? But if it's the weakest category, even biblically, only an Isser Lav, like Mamzeres, there would be a Knas. So this is more strict than our Mishnah, but it's not the strictest position. It only excludes Chayve Misa and Chayve Kares. Umani, and who is our Mishnah? Shimonate Mani. It's Shimonate Mani. You might remember Shimonate Mani said that if it would be a woman, that Kiddushin would be binding, even if it would not be licit, right? But if it would be binding, then there will be a Knas, and that would be, so by Chayv Lav, since the Kiddushin does take effect, you do pay the Knas, whereas by the more severe Arayot, the Kares and Misa, there's Kiddushin isn't binding, there won't be a Knas. Igad others say, Arayas is Chayve Misas Basin and Chayve Krisis. Now, Arayas means the weighty ones, Misas Basin and Kares. Shniyos secondary is still biblical, but the lighter category is Chayve Lavin, is negative prohibitions. Now, so whether it is the weighty prohibitions or just a simple negative prohibition, doesn't matter. Either way, it's biblically forbidden to marry this woman, even though in the case of Lav, it would be binding. Nevertheless, it's biblically forbidden. And therefore, since it's biblically forbidden, if marriage is not allowed, there won't be a Knas. And who is that? Mani Reb Shimon ben Menasya. That's Reb Shimon ben Menasya, who says that whenever marriage isn't allowed, there's not a Knas. So this is like a very nice bookend to the opening sugya. Forget all our discussion about Kimlei B'drabamine. The opening sugya pointed out that our Mishnah said that even a woman who's deserving, who's considered, it's an Isser Kares, there's going to be a Knas, which means put Kimlei aside, which means even if Kiddushin isn't binding, it doesn't matter. Right, the Knas is independent of the possibility to marry, and then we reminded then, and we're being reminded now that there are two Tanaim who disagree. There's the Tana that says that if marriage isn't binding, there's no Knas, right? That's Shimon HaTeimani, and there's the Tana that says that even if marriage isn't allowed, there's no Knas, even if it's a simple Lav, and that's Reb Shimon ben Menasya. And one of those Tanas is the one that is saying there's no Knas in a case of a Rayot and Shniyot LaRayot, because its case is more than the Mishnah. Kares or a Lav would be enough to exclude it from a case of a Knas. Okay, let's take a look at maybe one more section since we're a little bit ahead. Hamima Enet, okay, a young girl who refuses her, who's in a position to refuse her husband. So she's not technically married to the guy, but she's assumed to be having had sex with him, and therefore there's no knas. Ein lo knas v'lo pitoy. Haktana ba'alma. It suggests that a normal katana, a normal minor, isla, does get a knas because it's only this katana who's married to this guy. Even if she's less than 12, because a classic mima'enes is less than 12. Okay, she can't refuse once she's 12. So Mani, who's that going? Like Rabbanani, it's the rabbis. The Ami Ketana Yeshla Knas. Right? Remember the debate of the rabbis and Rabbi Meir, whether Knas is only by a Nara, or does it also include Ketana? So since it's only excused the Mima'enes, who's a Ketana who's living with a guy, it would sound like a normal Ketana gets a Knas, which is the rabbis. Ketana Yeshla Knas. Ema Seifa, but look at the end of the Mishnah. Braita, excuse me. Ilanis, Ein la. Lo Knas v'lo pito. And Ilanis doesn't get a Knas. So now why doesn't an Ilanis get a Knas? Because an Ilanis goes from being a Ketana to a Bogeret. She never has the stage of Nara. She never has the stage of puberty. So what? Who cares if she's a Ketana? Why doesn't she get a Knas? Asel Rabbi Meir. That's going according to Rabbi Meir. Dama Ketana ain't a Knas. It says a Ketana doesn't get a Knas. And the case of an Ilanis is Mikatnusa Yatza Lebege. She jumps from being a Ketana to being a Bogeret. She doesn't go through a stage of being a Nara. So that this Braita doesn't make sense. Reisha Rabbanan, the Reisha is the rabbis, because by casing the case of Mima Enes, it suggests that a normal Ketana has a Knas. The Sefer Rebbe Meir, and the end is Rebbe Meir, and by excluding Ilanis, it's saying a Ketana doesn't get a Knas. How do you make sense of that? The Chite Makula Rebbe Meir, maybe it's all Rebbe Meir. So then what's the case of Mima Enes? Mima Enes, Savarlak Rebbe Yehuda. Maybe he holds like Rebbe Yehuda by the case of Mima Enes. Which Rebbe Yehuda? We're going to see there's a Rebbe Yehuda that says that even a girl who is a Na'ara can still refuse her husband, can still do miyun. Okay? So therefore, right, you understand, by talking about a Mima'enes not getting a Knas, we're saying the parallel age girl does get a Knas. How is that possible, according to Rabbi Meir, who says only by a Nara? There's a position of Rebbe Yehuda that says that there's a Mima'enes who's a Nara. So therefore, that Mima Enis who's a Nara doesn't get a Knas, but a parallel age girl who's a Nara does get a Knas. Okay? Umi Savarla, does he really hold like Rabbi Yehuda? Vatanya, we turn to Brisa. Admatai Abbas Mima Enes. Until what age can the daughter refuse her husband? Okay, so Achatavi Shtei Sa'aris, once she has 2 pubic hairs, which is basically the case of being a Nara. She's 12 years old and has 2 pubic hairs. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Achiyir Bahashachar ala Lavan. No, the black has to be plentiful on the white, meaning that there has to be a lot of pubic hairs, or actually the way it's actually interpreted, that's what it sounds like. Though it's actually interpreted means that they have to be long hairs, not just the beginning of hairs. But anyway, it's a later age, even when she's a Nara, even after being a Ketana. But you see that Rabbi Meir disagrees with it. So we've got this problem. Rabbi Meir says only when she's a Ketana can she do miyun. Okay, so how do you explain our Braita? If the girl is a Mima'anet, she's a Ketana. Why would a normal Ketana, a normal girl of the same age, be entitled to a Knas, according to Rabbi Meir? So the Gemara says, El Rabbi Yehuda. Fine, let's go the reverse way. It's Rabbi Yehuda who says that a girl who is a Nara can still do miyun. Right, the Rabbi Yehuda we just quoted about the pubic hairs and whatever, and so he says that you could be talking about a Nara who could do miyun. Ubektana several like Rabbi Meir. When it comes to Knas, he holds like Rabbi. It's saying Rabbi Meir. It's saying the same thing in reverse. Are people are people with me? Right. Basically, it's saying the way to explain it is a position that holds like Rabbi Meir that a Ketana doesn't get a Knas, and that explains illness, and the Mima'enes is Rabbi Yehuda's position, who says that a girl could be a Nara and still be a Mima Enes. So if it can't be that Rabbi Meir holds like Rabbi Yehuda, then let's say Rabbi Yehuda holds like Rabbi Meir. Okay, but you can't say that. Umi Savarlav, I'm a Rabbi Yehuda, I'm a Rav, but he doesn't hold it, because when we explained our Mishnah that said only a Nara gets a Knas and not a Ketana, we said Zudive Rabbi Meir. This is the position of Rabbi Meir. Vim Isa, and if Rabbi Yehuda agreed to it, it should say Zudive Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda mi bayale. It should have said that this is Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. So basically, we're stuck. Rabbi Meir doesn't agree to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't agree to Rabbi Meir. But our Braita has to be a position that holds of both. It has to be a position that rejects Ketana, because that's the illness case. And it has to be a position that allows for there to be a Mima Enes who's a Nara. So who's that position? So you know who it is? We make up a third position. So the Gemara says, Hi Tana Savalak Reb Meir Bechado, Poligale Bechada. Fine. It's some third Tana. He holds like Rabbi Meir that only a Nara gets a Knas, not a Ketana, and that explains illness. And he holds like Rabbi Yehuda that you can have a girl who's a Nara and still be Mima Enes. Okay? Rav from Amar, my Mima Enes, and Rav from says, no, here's a simpler explanation. When it says Mima Enes, it doesn't mean only a girl who's in a marriage. It means Haru'uya Lamayin, any girl who's fit to do Miyan. It's a code way of saying Ketana. So really, your problem was Mima Enes sounded like a normal Ketana has a Knas. No, Mima Enes means any girl who's able to do Miyan, means a Ketana. So the Gemara says, V'lisni Ketana, so then why talk in code? Why not just say a Ketana? All right, Kasha, that's problem. Anyway, basically, what it says is the reason an illness doesn't have a Knas is because she's not a Ketana, and she goes from Ketana to Bogeret. She's never a Nara. It's going like Rabbi Meir. And the reason a Mima Enes doesn't have a Knas has to be a case that there's a Mima Enes who's also a Nara, and that's a Rabbi Yehuda position, and therefore a normal Nara would have a Knas, but this one, because she's been living with a guy, is assumed to not be a virgin, and therefore does not have a Knas. Okay, phew. All right, so we actually are getting nicely ahead, I would say.
So where do we discuss Shota again?
Shota?
Yeah.